And I've got my guest on the line, Amanda Varty. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining me and coming on my show, so to speak. It's just to share your faith and your testimony. It was wonderful to hear about your story from Susan Harmon. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes,
Down this end of the country. Because you're actually... Whereabouts are you, can you say?
I'm based in Bradford,
right.
up in West Yorkshire.
Yes. And the church that you're linked to is Life Church, is it?
That is, yes. So I felt very at home as you were playing Alive Again, because that's the music we worship to in church.
Right, that's wonderful. So can you explain a bit about your church?
Yes, our church is a very large church, actually. We've got about 1,000 people come every Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. A church that's reaching all parts of our community, a church that's very welcoming to people. We have homeless people, all kinds of people there, and just a very beautiful church where we see the gospel expressed in people's love and people's actions on a weekly basis.
Well, that's wonderful to hear that you got in the community, and also the amount of people that come along. So how did it all start for you then, your faith, Amanda?
Well, I became Christian when I was 15. I was actually brought up in a family who sort of loosely attended the Church of England. We kind of come, certainly at Christmas and at Easter and sometimes in between. I was brought up to pray with my mum and dad. But we weren't a regular church-going family. But then when I was 15, a friend invited me to, it was actually a Spring Harvest reunion event, even though I'd never been to Spring Harvest. And that night I was actually touched by the words of the songs that we were singing about God as a Father, and just so something in my heart it just melted, and I just made that decision that I wanted to follow Jesus for the rest of my life and never looked back.
So how was your life at that point?
When I was 15, life was actually quite complicated because I had a mum who was very ill, and just knowing the comfort of God with me was so helpful during that time.
But during that period, you became unwell.
Well, it was quite a number of years later. It was actually in February 2002. Life changed so suddenly. I was rushed into hospital and was told that I had internal bleeding and a growth in my kidney that had all the hallmarks of cancer. And so I went through major surgery, and then actually some very good news came because I was told the growth wasn't cancer, and that in 3 months' time I'd be fully recovered and able to live a totally normal life. But then everything went wrong because I developed complications after the surgery and ended up with a severe form of ME that left me bedridden for 9 years.
So how was your faith at that time? How did it... what was your situation?
I was regularly attending church. My husband was a Christian too. We were very committed. Although, to be fair, I think life had become very busy, and in the busyness of life, God had maybe just slipped a little away from the centre without us actually realising it. But actually the cancer scare brought us so close to God again, and actually it really gave me a whole new lease of life, like I'd been given a second chance. And I actually promised God at that point that I wanted to use my life to make a difference to others from now on. And so yes, I think the cancer scare actually brought me so close to God again.
Yeah, and with the period of time that you mentioned that you were bedridden, how did you fellowship at that time?
I didn't at all. I was totally unable to leave the house for 9 years, which was, it was just, I'm a very people person. I couldn't even have visitors. During that time, the only two people that I saw were my husband and the GP, and very occasionally others. But I was so ill that actually to even talk to visitors would absolutely knock my condition back a long way. And so I couldn't go to church. I used to listen to Christian radio, I used to listen to teaching, and I just talked to God constantly during that time. I became so close to God. It was like my relationship took on a whole new level with God during that time.
So there was no, shall I say, oh, why me, Lord?
Do you know, very early on in the illness, before I had any idea I would be bedridden for 9 years, I was reading my Bible notes, and they said, we'll have a choice in life when tough times come, whether they make us bitter or whether they make us better. And attached to that was the promise in Romans 8:28 that God works all things for good. And I made a decision that day. I will not let this make me bitter. I will let this make me better. And God, I trust that you will heal me. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting, I believe you'll make me stronger and you will grow me through this. And that's not to say I didn't have terribly tough times when I would doubt and when it would be very difficult, but I'd made that decision and I stuck by it, and I actually refused to ask why me.
Right. And your husband there, and also the GP, was helping you through your situation?
Yes, and we did. I mean, we were part of a church, and my husband Steve was going to church every week, and the whole church were praying for me, and knowing their prayers were behind me, that even if I couldn't physically see those people, knowing their prayers was behind me, and that they kept praying for 9 years, that was a huge encouragement to me.
Yeah. But there has been a time in your life when things totally changed again.
Absolutely, because I don't know if you can imagine, but my situation when I was bedbound, I reached rock bottom, because we'd gone from being a normal couple to me having to be spoon-fed. My world had shrunk from a big wide world to a tiny world of 4 walls of a darkened room, because I couldn't even have the curtains open due to severe light sensitivity. I'd lost my job, my car, we'd nearly lost our house. I'd been told there was no cure. I even had boil-like sores all over my face that didn't respond to treatment, and was so low that I couldn't even look in the mirror without crying because I no longer recognised my own face. And it was at that point that I cried out, like a deep cry, so desperate to God. God, it's been 4 years, please heal me. And in that moment of total surrender was the turning point of the entire situation.